Spirituality 101 is basically this. There is a God, and it's not you. God is God because He is completely self-sufficient in Himself. Strictly speaking, God doesn't need anything. He doesn't, but you do. We have needs that we must take care of if we are to thrive and survive. Our whole being is a vast collection of neediness. Needs that are both simple and complex, some that are easily attainable, and others that are completely out of reach. We're needy. Just think of your physical needs. You need oxygen, food, and water. Then there are your emotional and mental health needs. You have a need to be understood, a need for acceptance and encouragement. You need self-confidence and self-esteem. You need meaning and purpose. You need to work and to rest. The list goes on. And on top of those needs, you have spiritual needs. You and I are needy. God has created us with needs. Well, God gives us free will, and He passes on to us the responsibility to take care of our needs as adults. And doing that outweighs almost every other responsibility we have. On the surface, that sounds very selfish, but it's just common sense. You can't help anybody until you've taken care of yourself. And if you don't, you'll eventually become somebody else's problem. On the other hand, when you do take care of your own needs, you'll more effectively be able to care for others. Caring for yourself can and should be preparation for love and service of others. This is very important if you have any responsibility of any kind, because the first 50% of leadership is self-leadership. Well, here's what Jesus said. One time, somebody asked Him, what was the most important thing of all, the most important thing ever? He said, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself. As yourself. Now, Jesus teaches that even our very ability to love others rests first and foremost on our love and care of ourselves. You know, perhaps we don't deny all our needs all of the time, but we have a tendency to deny them every once in a while. For example, there have been times when you knew deep down that you needed help, and you didn't seek it out until you had no other choice. When we deny even a single one of our legitimate needs, we're not moving toward hell, we're moving away from it. So, we're taking this season of Lent to take a closer look of how needy we are, how to best meet those needs, and as a result, how to be healthier. We talked about some of the temptations we face when it comes to our needs. The first temptation, meeting legitimate needs in illegitimate ways. We'll be tempted from time to time to do something we know is wrong in order to meet a real need. For example, we need to be at work, and we're running late, so we break the speed limit, and we drive recklessly. Second temptation, meeting legitimate needs through shortcuts. With our needs, we're often tempted to settle for what is a shadow of the real and legitimate need we experience. You know, to take the easy way out, to go for the shortcut. For example, you found yourself really tired recently, so you start skipping working out and going to the gym, and you're sleeping in instead. Well, third temptation, meeting our needs by worshiping them. We turn our needs into gods, to make them the whole of our life, to give to them our attention, our affection, our ability to pursue them at all costs. This is, for example, the lady who arranges her every weekend around going to the casino. And all of her disposable income, her free time, even her family time, goes there. Well, today we're going to talk about two needs that go together. We are meant to live in rhythm and balance between one of these and the other. Life is a constant switching back and forth between these two. Before I get into this topic, I want at the start to say that there might be a few people for whom this message seemingly doesn't apply. I just promise you that everybody will benefit from looking at today's topic. And up front, I also want to say that nobody should feel guilty or overwhelmed or a failure at hearing about this. Please don't. Our lives as growing disciples of Jesus are a lifelong journey. And please take from this message positive encouragement along that journey. Well, anyway, to learn more about these two needs we all have in our lives, we're going to look at a passage from the book of Exodus in the Old Testament, where God gives the 10 Commandments. Don't worry, we're not going to look at all 10 Commandments. We're just going to look at one. It's important to note about the 10 Commandments that God does not give them as a condition for a relationship with Him, but instead they're given by God to His chosen people in the context of a relationship. So in other words, God didn't order and command His people to do these 10 things and all those commandments and then form a relationship with Him. They didn't have to earn God's favor or His friendship at all. Instead, God gives these commandments to the people only after He had chosen them and shown His power by parting the Red Sea and rescued them from slavery in Egypt. This is a very important point, including for us Christians. God's initiative comes first. God's invitation to relationship comes first, and then come His commands. Well, what do the 10 Commandments say about our neediness? Well, first of all, they reveal God's own priorities. They show that God isn't just all-powerful, but He's also good, and He loves us. God gives us His commandments out of love for us, in order that we live a better life, a blessed life, a good life. It turns out that when we live these commandments, we're more human. We're more who we are created to be. And we can love God and love people more deeply. Well, the commandment we're looking at today is the third commandment, which goes like this. Remember to keep holy the Sabbath day. 6 days you may labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. No work may be done then by you. Well, the commandment goes on then to explain, in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them. But on the seventh day He rested. That is why the Lord has blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. So, God works for 6 days. He creates the heavens and the earth and everything in it, as we hear at the very beginning of the Bible in Genesis. Then He creates the pinnacle of His creation, human beings, men and women, who are made in His image and likeness. Then, after all the work of creation, God rests. Why? Is God worn out? Is He tired? God rests so to set the pattern for how He wants us to live, the proper rhythm and balance in which we function best. And that's what Exodus here is pointing to. But let's take a quick look at the pattern. God begins with work. At one point, there was no creation, and God decided to get to work and create something. Not because He was bored or had nothing to do, but out of His overflowing love. So He gets to work. And since we are made in the image and likeness of God as human beings, we are to work also. So notice in Exodus, the commandment says, 6 days you may labor and do all your work. The commandment assumes an inclination towards work, as if it's something we will naturally desire. Maybe some people see work as a curse, something that's the result of sin. This is not true. Work is not meant to be a punishment. Work is actually part of God's plan, written into the very act of creation and carved into our soul. Because, again, we're made in the image and likeness of God. Well, there's a dignity to our work. We not only need the profit of our labor, but we also need the process of working. So it's important that we view work in the right way, in the correct way. There are 3 basic ways that we might be inclined to look at work. One way is to see work as just a job. A job, this idea is that work is something simply to pay the bills and to supply our needs. And of course it does, but when it's all that it does, it's not very satisfying. Well, another way to look at work is as a career. This is the attitude that work is just about moving up the ladder, or making a name for yourself, or building a nest egg. If work is just about these things, then it falls short really of satisfying our souls. And finally, the third way to look at work is as a vocation. People who see their work as a calling see meaning and purpose in their work beyond themselves. They recognize the real gifts they've been given and service to a greater good, to a higher purpose. That kind of work can be soul satisfying. And ultimately, if we have that kind of work and we find it, it's given by God. Well, my friends, we need God first in order to help us find that kind of soul satisfying work. But that's only part of His plan. Work is then matched with rest. Rest also gives you the opportunity to enjoy all the blessings that God provides. Well, God once again sets this example in creation. Genesis tells us that after God creates everything, after every single day, He proclaims that it is good. Then He stops and rests. So what's rest? Well, rest is not just recreation and exercise, though it can be that. And it's not just running around to all your kids' activities or your friends' activities. And rest is not just entertainment and distraction. You know, some people love planning this super busy vacation, and then they need a vacation from their vacation in order to get back to the ordinary routine of work. And that's not the rest we're talking about. You see, soul-satisfying work must be matched with soul-satisfying rest. Soul-satisfying rest refreshes the soul and spirit. It leaves us refreshed and equipped to return to our work. And to find that kind of rest, we also need God. This is why the psalmist says famously, "The Lord is my shepherd. He makes me lie down in green pasture. He makes me lie down." You see, sheep need to be led to rest and have to be made to lie down. But guess what? We're like sheep. We can't just find rest on our own. We need to be led to it. We need God to lead us to rest. Well, this begins with weekend worship and coming to church, or setting that time to participate with us right now online. When you make this a priority on your Sabbath, you're putting your trust in God, that He will lead you to a place of rest. Well, here at St. John's, one of our major strategies in rebuilding our church is to create an excellent weekend experience, both in person and now online, so that our whole parish family and everybody who joins us leave encouraged and equipped, and maybe even a little inspired to go back out to your life and to your work. Well, my friends, God has built into our lives these two dual needs, work and rest. When you hear this message, you're probably tends towards knowing that you have a greater need right now for either one or the other, right? Well, maybe you're working in a job that's just a job or a career, but it isn't really a calling. You don't find soul satisfaction. This doesn't necessarily mean that you should make a change. Maybe you just need to look at what you're doing in a different perspective, from the perspective of the impact your work is having, or the giftedness you've been given to do it. Well, maybe God is calling you to something else. Maybe your dissatisfaction with your current work is leading you in another direction. Maybe God is calling you to work in a nonprofit or even a church. Maybe God is calling you to the priesthood or religious life. For some of you, this question of work isn't an issue. If you love your work and enjoy it, just take some time this week to thank God for that. That's a gift. Now, maybe you're a student and all of this is still ahead of you, or you're retired and you're not sure how this applies. I know many retirees feel busier than ever, and others whose quote-unquote work right now maybe is to be a prayer warrior. Keep that up. Everybody at every stage of life, even the actively dying, have work. Well, maybe on the other hand, you've heard this message and you realize on the other extreme that you need rest. You don't have a Sabbath. A day where you get rest and you just feel tired. You're tired down to your soul. And you realize that your pace of life right now is not sustainable. I just invite you to begin by asking God to help you find rest, to lead you to that place of rest. And finally, for some of you who may have lost work because of COVID, or those who are struggling to make ends meet for themselves and for their families, those who might be overwhelmed by working multiple jobs, 2 or 3 jobs, and you might have needs that you just can't meet on your own right now. I want to tell you that God is with you. God is with you. He loves you. You're not alone. And even if you can't meet certain needs right now for you or your family, that doesn't mean that you'll be in that place forever. Please know that there are loving people in our community who can help you. A few years ago, here at our church, we started something called Partners in Mission. It was a way for us to support and advocate for organizations in our community who share our values and have a local impact. Organizations like the Bushkill Outreach, our local food pantry. Well, perhaps you're not a person in need, quote unquote, but you have the ability and the means to help our partners. So go to our website, churchofstjohn.com/partners, and you'll find information on how to help. Well, my friend, knowing your needs and taking the time to meet them is not selfish. It's living in the reality that we are children of God. He made all of us needy so that we'll eventually come to understand our greatest need is for Him. Amen.